So you're about to take your TEAS. I understand the stress of that, as a week ago I was feeling that burden of this unknown test that no one seems to talk about very much. But this is how I took my test. I had 30 days pretty much to prepare, and I ended up with the results that I was decently happy with. So these are just 10 tips, tricks that I had, that I used to get me where I wanted to today. All right, tip number 1. I would say this is one of the most important, because it's easy to lose confidence and drive throughout the process as you're studying, and the test is a month away or 3 weeks away or 2 weeks away. It just seems so far. It's hard to keep focused sometimes. And so my first tip would be to keep the end goal in mind. Remember, you are doing this for a reason. Nursing is an admirable career, and this is not a career or schooling for the faint of heart. This is difficult, and it takes a lot of diligence and discipline. And you do have to persevere through times where it is difficult to get up and to spend 2, 3, 4 hours studying. But if you keep your end goal in mind and you stay focused on that, it will help you throughout those tough days where the hours seem long and the studying seems useless. Sometimes it feels like it's falling on deaf ears as you're trying to teach yourself. So I would just say to stay focused. Remember why you're doing what you're doing. Tip number 2, I would say, is get this book, TEAS Secrets. It's a great resource. It's actually, other than the ATI testing on the website, this was the only physical resource that I used. I read it from cover to cover. I took every practice exam, I underlined, I learned what this book really taught. It's in depth. It teaches you really what this test is about, and it gives you a lot of tips and tricks, and you take the practice exams, and you learn how they ask their questions, which is really important, and you see why you got questions wrong, which is awesome, because then you don't make the same mistake twice. So I'd recommend that book to everyone taking this test. It's only about 300 pages, so it's very reasonable to get it done in about a month. So that would be my second tip. Tip number 3, I would say, is to use the resources that you have. I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, so I would go to people that are good at my weaknesses. I went to one of my friends who's an English major to help me with the language arts portion and the reading portion, as those weren't areas that I was getting on my own. It was nice to have someone help me to understand, and these things were things we've learned, some of us, a long time ago. Punctuation and all of that, and conjunctions and things that I haven't touched base on in, goodness, 10 years. And so having someone that is an expert in the subject help teach me and learn what to look at in sentences and teach me the small stuff that I maybe just needed a refresher on. I would just encourage you, go to people that know the subjects that can help you. So my tip number 3, use the resources around you. Tip 4, okay. This one was life-changing, honestly, for me on the test. Prior to this point, not the best test taker at all, but what's really important for this test is to see what the question is actually asking. So tip number 4 is look what the question is actually asking. Is one word in the question could change the entire question being asked. And so with time being a pressure during the test, it's easy to kind of rush through, but really look what the question is asking, because you can have 4 answers and one of them is correct, or 2 of them are correct, but one of them is correct for the question actually being asked. So see what the question actually is being asked, because just because an answer is right doesn't mean it's right for that question. So really read, really understand what they're asking you. Tip 5, don't get stuck on a question. There's this thing called mark on the test where you can mark your question and then go back to it later once you finish. But it's so easy to get caught up on a question that you don't know the answer to, or just in that moment you're just stressed or whatever it may be. But if you combine the pressure of glancing up at the time and also thinking you don't know the answer to a question, it could cause unnecessary anxiety during the test, and you don't want that. So if you don't know the answer, don't get caught up, mark it, keep moving on, because you don't want that one question to affect the next question or the next 2 questions, and questions you may know actually the answer to. So just move on. then go back to that question at the end, and maybe things throughout reading the next couple questions could really help you out with that question, or relieve some anxiety because you know you answered the rest of the questions, because you get a lot better score and you increase your chances of a better score if you answer all of the questions or a majority of the questions than just getting stuck on one and trying to get that question right. So don't get caught up on one question. Just move on and go back. Okay, there she is, the roommate. She really helped during it. All right, tip 6, take time test. This test is time, and that could be something that's a heavy burden, something always in the back of your head, and you feel rushed almost, even if you don't. Oh, I messed up. That's okay, I'm gonna keep going. Okay, take time test. Tip 6, take time test. You want to see your pace and what's a healthy pace for you and which subject, which ones you're rushing on, which one you actually have a little bit of grace in your time. But I've heard so many things about people not finishing in time. So you want to prepare for that. That's a big part of this test, is making sure that you pace yourself in a healthy manner where you are reading the question completely, reading all the answers, but then you also finish in the amount of time that they allot for you. This allotted amount of time is not spontaneous. They didn't just come up with it for no reason. They know that this is enough time to get it done. So figure out a way to pace yourself, but that's why it's important. Take time test. Understand where you can slow down, or maybe you have to speed up just a little bit without compromising the integrity of the question and how you answer it. Tip 7 is isolated to reading. What I did for reading is I read the question first and then read the article, as that gave me where to look, be intentional, what to focus on, so that I can answer the question. And I also, when I was doing the reading, I would try to come up with the answer first and then look at the options, because then I can almost convince myself in the test that all of them are right. So I tried to read the question and then read the article, come up with my own answer, and see which answer is parallel to that. And that really helped me on the reading section of the test. Tip 8 is for math. Math was one of my stronger subjects in the test, and so what I would recommend, learn algebra. Again, like I had said, use your resources, use the people around you that know the subjects well, that can help you and come alongside you, as this is math that we've, again, might have taken a long time ago. So you want refreshers, you want to remember how to do these, because the equations are really important. For a majority of the test, it is equations and word problems where you have equations in it, algebraic equations in it. And so one thing that I realized is that the answer is actually there. The answer is one of the 4. So if you get stuck on one of them, plug the answers into the equation, because only one of them can work. So that's a big tip, I would say, is the answer is actually there. So plug it in. I wanted to show you an example of maybe one of the test questions that you can get. So here we go. 1 gallon of gas, and 1 gallon of gas gets you 30 miles. An example question would be, how many miles can 7 gallons of gas get you? So the equation would be set up like this. 1 gallon of gas gets you 30 miles. How many miles, the 30, does 7 gallons of gas get you? So you cross multiply and divide. You do the 7 times the 30, which is 210. 210 right here, that's the multiplication, and then you divide this direction, 210 divided by 1, which is 210. So 7 gallons of gas gets you 210 miles. Gotta love the roommate cleaning. All right, here we go. Tip number 9. We're in the science section. I would recommend, as I've heard in a couple other videos, taking your sciences before attempting the TEAS, as a lot of it is anatomy and physiology and life sciences. And I didn't know life sciences translated to pretty much biology, chemistry, and microbiology. So you want to take those classes to have a really good foundation, so that when you do refresh your mind on those subjects, it's not learning from the ground up. You definitely have a foundation of where to start. So remember, you have a wealth of knowledge. If you've taken those classes, you've had to do your due diligence, you've had to take hard tests, and remember, you have that knowledge in there. So when you take this test, no detail is too small. I would look over the 11 organ systems and really just study as much as you can in science. There's no real way to minimize how much information is on it. So you want to really study, and you have a wealth of knowledge. Again, you've learned this stuff before, so you're going to want to read each question. You may not know every word in the question, but you know some of them, and use the words you do know to increase your chances of getting the question right. Because if you can process of elimination, get rid of 2 answers, that increases the likelihood of you getting it right significantly. Each question you take out increases to 25% your chance of getting it right. So you want to really look at the words you know. Don't be overwhelmed. Read the question it's asking. So science, you really want to study and get a good basis and knowledge of the 11 organ systems so you can apply it. And again, the life sciences, there she is again. I love it. So again, laugh. It really helped. It got me through that month. Laughing with that one helped me get through the month. So science, yes. Learn what you can. You're not going to be able to know every single thing, but you can have a good baseline and a good blueprint so that you can apply what you do know and really give yourself a good chance of getting a good score on science. Of knowledge. So even if you don't understand the question completely, but if you know some of the words, that could help you. And so I remember getting a question on the test that had the prefix sub on it, and I knew sub meant underneath or below, so I could eliminate 2 of the answers that didn't even have those words in it, and then the 2 words that did, I can use. I gave myself a 50-50 chance is really what I did. So you just want to increase your chances to get a better grade on the test. And so all of these tips and tricks, they're not magic. They're not going to give you 100% necessarily, but they are going to help you when you don't know completely. And they are going to hopefully calm your mind in the test, because hundreds, thousands of people have taken this test before, but it is an unknown. It is something that we haven't, people don't talk about much. So use your wealth of knowledge that you do have. Trust your instincts. Go with your gut. The day before and day of. Some people like to cram. Even after they studied for a month, they want to cram the night before and just get whatever they can in. I can't speak for everyone, but for myself, the day before I stopped studying around 1, and I didn't study the day of. I had my test about 1 in the afternoon, and I decided to just relax, rest, meditate, stay focused on what was to come. Because again, I didn't know many people who had taken the test. There's not that many videos out there that really explain what goes on day of. I remember day of, I went up to the testing center, and pretty much they told me to take off anything hooded, my watch. I couldn't use my own pencil, which was so sad because I really want to use my own pencil, but they have everything for you. They have the calculator on the computer. They have the notebook paper that you can use. They have the pencil you can use. You have to have your ID, be ready. So while I was in there, my phone was gone, and that idle time, that 15, 20, 30 minutes that I had before my test started. Get there early. You just want to be prepared. And so that time is so easy to get caught up in your head and really allow thoughts to become anxiety. And but you prepared for this moment. You're ready. There's not any more studying you can do. Nerves are only going to work against you at that time. So you want to just stay, keep your mind clear, take deep breaths. I prayed before, and I just meditated, and I calmed my nerves. And just prepare for what's to come. Again, you can't, at that point, when you're there, you can't do anything more. So you've done your part, you've done your due diligence. Now it's just time to have the test be a representation of how much effort and time you've put in.